cover hidden market moves as much as I think one of the tools that we wanted to discuss today, and our special guest who's coming in should be here shortly, so that's the good news. So with that said, it's now well into the time frame that we begin at 4:30 Eastern. So let me do this. I'm going to turn my mic off for a quick nanosecond or so, and then I'm going to activate the recording device so that we have everything recorded for a secondary rerun, kind of speak, if you guys were so interested, which we send an email invitation with that. So let me do. So welcome everybody. That's right, Samuel, I said I was going to stop and start the recording, so now we are recording. We've done our sound checks, just one last sound check. Make sure everyone's hearing okay, everything should be well. Thanks everyone for joining. We have a nice audience today. A special trading concept using Thinkorswim platform. So basically what we were going to do was have a special guest come in. Many of you are, if you are a fan, client, trader with Thinkorswim. Cindy Faber was our special guest, and she's a little delayed right now, so we'll just begin. No big deal. Things happen. Basically what we were going to go over, just to give you a quick synopsis, Cindy's opinions are Cindy's opinions, and my opinions are my opinions. This presentation are strictly education in designed educational purposes. So I guess in the content of having all our disclosures out there, please take a moment to read this. And one of the things that we appreciate is that people respect privacy and, of course, copyrights not to reproduce and sending it out and all that kind of good stuff. All right. And just a quick note of house cleaning. If there seems to be sound issues on your end, if you have a delay, someone mentions a delay, if you have too many browsers open, that might cause a problem. So close some of your browsers up, and that might help clear up some latency issues that you might have. Just wanted to throw that out there. All right, so we'll just to put that out there for everybody. Okay. So if you, for the majority of people, if everyone says that it's doing good, then I got to go with the majority of people. All right. So with that said, the majority of people say everything's fine. We've got everything. Many of you are familiar with my name. We launched this book, and it's now kind of fun to say, believe it or not, this book, it's not fun, it's a bittersweet thing, but this book right here, Candlestick and Pivot Point Trading Triggers, really helped popularize the pivot point analysis. Many people, it was like a lost art. And one of the things that we did is we reinvented and released to the world the concept of the person's pivots using a moving average, which helps filter out support and resistance targets. It's a very popular feature. It was launched, I think, after this book was put out, about a year or so later on the Thinkorswim platform. It's a very popular tool and indicator. And then we came out in a few years after that with an indicator that many people are familiar with. It's called the Person's Pivot Study, otherwise known as the Pps Indicator. It gives, we like to say from a compliance standpoint, little arrows that point up are bullish momentum indicators, and arrows that point down are bearish momentum indicators, otherwise known as buy and sell signals. So we also came out with this book a few years back in 2012. I can't believe where the year has, it's just amazing, which really introduced the world to something that I don't think a lot of people were looking at, the ability to measure some of the metrics that we have available to us, like breadth analysis, different volume tools, and then, of course, one of my favorite topics that we're going to cover today is seasonality and how to use the seasonality tool. My work in the Commodity Traders Almanac, even though the word said, as you can see as I'm drawing here, commodity, what I brought to the table with the Commodity Traders Almanac for the years that it was out is how many stocks and sector ETFs were correlated to underlying commodities. And through the years, we have had so many new products launch, inverse ETFs, leveraged ETFs, inverse leveraged ETFs, and the like. And so it's really been a fun ride, and being a part of the growth of not just products, but the way we trade the market. So anyway, I am a member of APTA. It stands for the American Association of Professional Technical Analysts. It's a really nice organization, as well as the chief master in charge, sort of next to my wife, Mary. Actually, I'm second in command next to my wife, Mary, here at Person's Planet. Many of you know my wife, so and have met her. So with that, if you're not familiar of any of the things that I have mentioned, you can find the Person's Pivots, which we'll cover after Cindy comes in and introduces what I think is a fabulous thing for her, and also how I use PPS Indicator buy and sells in conjunction with Person's Pivots. Okay? So with that said, what do we need? Better market analytical skills. If I ever go to your town or have visited your town and gone to, as I have been very fondly received across the country at a lot of individual investment groups. I love going out to California. Jerome's out there. There's a lot of Jim guys up in Boston, Bob. I mean, the list just goes on and on. Many of you guys have seen me in person, and I think one of the things that I do like to do is to ask the audience, you know, how things are going, what tools are working for you, and what tools aren't working for you. And one of the questions I always like to ask is, if you had better market analytical skills, I mean, would you do better at trading? And it's a pretty loaded question. The answer is yes. So I think that's the key is, well, how do we get better analytical skills? And I think we need to all address the ability to anticipate market opportunities. That's a very powerful statement, number two. I've been teaching this for decades. How do you anticipate a market opportunity? You know, eventually, I'll just give you an example. We've been talking here in our community for several weeks now, for multiple weeks, and back in even January when the world was falling off the cliff, thinking the end of the world was here, we were noticing that there were a lot of equities and there was a lot of buying opportunities in the market. A lot of stocks were trading near their predicted monthly and even quarterly Person's Pivot support levels. We noticed that we were seeing a big surge of volume come in with a lot of, for example, restaurant names and retail apparel stocks were coming into vogue again. And while everyone was kind of focusing on, you know, some of the big name stuff, we were seeing a surge in some of the transportation names. Even the airlines came back, which are, you know, have had a really big move in the month of February and in the first week of March. So I think anticipating market opportunities, eventually the cheap gas prices are going to be good for the consumers, and I think that's why we've seen a surge and a recovery in the small cap, especially a lot of the names in the retail apparel sector, Look what happened with Urban Outfitters today after earnings. And it's not just there, Toomey, which is another small little company that makes expensive luggage, which I've gone through myself. And I think those are what I'm talking about, anticipating market opportunities. If something is going to eventually come into the market while everyone's looking left, we started to see materials, industrials, transportation stocks, all of that stuff started to surge. Another thing that happened, we started to see, not just in the XLB, the material sector ETF, we started to see, is something I tweeted out over a week ago, which showed up on our scans, by the way, steel sector stocks. Zeus was one, AK Steel, AKS. All of these stocks started to pop off the radar, and that, I think, was something that was truly unique. We saw copper start to move, in which, incidentally, one of my favorite topics, as I mentioned, was seasonality. The best time of the year for copper, which starts a seasonal uptrend in the market, is in late December, that lasts going into usually early May. I don't know if you've looked at copper prices lately, but they've it had a nice pullback today, but boy, it's been on a tear. I think traders need to make trade decisions based on facts, and the facts are not by watching the TV of someone else's opinion. Look at your volume. Look at your seasonality. Technical analysis always supersedes seasonality, and that's what we need. And so with that said, I'd like to start with our thoughts from our special guest, Cindy Faber of TD Ameritrade from Thinkorswim, of course. And Cindy today is going to share her thoughts on how to use seasonal charts on the Thinkorswim, something we've gone over together. But I think it's nice to have Cindy come in and give her thoughts on how that tool is being used by what she sees on her end, ability to backtest what appears to be a seasonal pattern, and setting some time alerts to warn of last trading day before earnings. Now, she's going to also, for being here today with us, she's going to give us, everyone, and I'm going to put that into the trading room right now. So look in your chat box, and you can see that little link, http://toss.mx/47QVFS. If you look at your link, capture that link. We're going to explain how to utilize it, what it is. This is Cindy's file, and she's giving this to everyone who's a TOS customer in our room right now with us, a free gift. This is a special bonus. This is really cool stuff. And with that said, Cindy is in-house, so we're going to get her with her mic up, and she's going to, we're going to let her start the screen sharing from her end, and then we're going to get rocking and rolling. And then when Cindy's done, I'm going to come in and start to explain how you can combine what she's just talked about as a quick review of how we utilize PPS and Person's Pivot in conjunction together. So we all are ready, and we'll go from there. So welcome, Cindy. It's great to have you here. And let's see if the Okay, well, let's see if Cindy has the mic set up there. Can't hear Cindy. Yes, I'm back. Cindy's not. So give us a second. Just bear with us, folks. Just a minute. Hold on. We're going to go dark for a minute. Let's go dark until Cindy gets that mic resolved. Okay, so I guess good news, bad news, folks. Cindy, we have some technical difficulties, which makes it hard. So there are some technical difficulties, and that's sad. But the good news is, I know I wanted to get Cindy's version of this. I've got some stuff already teed up for us, so I'm going to go first and foremost. What I really wanted her to do was to come in and be able to, without technical difficulties, and there's always, that technical Grinch that stole Christmas. The tool, what it is designed to do is to give you guys an idea, and we'll reschedule this again, folks, but basically the tool, this thing gives you a warning about your earnings dates that come out, past earning dates when they came out, and it gives you, of course, you all have a tool typically of what this does for earnings, and you can set your right expression on the chart. So what it really is kind of helpful to give a futuristic alert towards the earnings dates that are coming out, and then you have at least right on your charts, as you can see, earnings before, earnings after market. So this is PRTS US Auto Parts Network, which had earnings after the bell today, and it alerts you that there is earnings when you look at different markets. And that's what the link that we gave you does. Now, how do you insert that? So let's start there. Let's start with what we can work with right now. So basically, if you go up to Setup, all right, so let's just do this. If you go over here and you go to Application Settings, excuse me, I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. Share, Open Shared Item. There it is. Okay. Click on Setup, Open Shared Item, and then put in Control-V, put in the link that I've sent to you guys. Hit Preview, and then hit Open. All right? So the link D, if you scroll in, is in the chat box at the bottom. I'll put it in again so that you can see it. If you go down to the chat box, everybody, the link is in. So we could all do this together and bombard everything all at once on Thinkorswim's platform. If you just put that in, everyone can see it into the chat box there at the bottom, you can see the link. So that's where you get the link. That's how you insert it, and then just follow directions. And the directions, just click on Open, and then now ThinkScript, as you can see, has been a little separate box will come up, and it says the ThinkScript study has been saved as from TOS support, and you can rename this. Now, what I did is I actually renamed it, and I already got it in there, so I'm going to hit Cancel. I'm going to go to Studies, okay, and I'm going to edit Studies here, and you can see what I've done. I've actually called it Cindy_earning. So then it should be into your study box, Edit Studies and Strategies. It should be in your earnings, or excuse me, your Edit Studies box, like I said. Just click on that, then hit Add Selected, and I already have it in there, so I'm not going to hit Add Selected again. Then click on Apply and OK, and you now have that on your box. So that's how we get that. So, John, you're asking me to list the steps one more time. Sure, let's do that. Go to Setup at the very upper right top, Setup. So, Step 1, Setup, right at the upper top, very tippy top. I got an arrow pointing towards it. Arrow pointing towards it. Then, Open Shared Item. Second, when the drop-down menu. Does everyone see that? Can everyone see what I'm alluding to there? Setup. Click on it. Open Shared Item. Now it has to be the same thing. It's right there. Under the main setup at the very top, you have home screen, message, support chat, setup. 2 boxes down, Open Shared Item. Click on that. Then enter the shared item. If you copy it, then just Control C and then hit Control V, or copy paste it in there and then hit preview as it says. Then as you just read the directions, it says click open to import, hit open, and then a box populates and says that has been saved from your chart, and hit OK. Boom. We're all done. All right. Now, if you go back, and we'll do it one more time, setup, open shared item, Control V, hit preview, okay, and then hit open, and then it says it's been saved. Now, watch this, folks. Do you see it says rename it? That's where you click on rename. You can rename this link so you know what the heck it is. Instead of having from Thinkorswim support on March that file, you just rename it. I renamed it Cindy, C-I-N-D-Y, _ earning. Now this is the worst earnings writing I've ever tried with this pen, but that's what I've renamed it. Okay? So just hit OK. And then when you go up to inserting it, now there's studies. Go to studies. You can go to edit study, all study, quick study, go to edit studies. You get the main box and you scroll down under C. If you've renamed it like I did, right, then everything should be correct, and there's Cindy earning. Okay? So that's it. If you didn't, it should be under M for everything else. All right? So, if two things. If your speakers aren't working, if the sound isn't good, again, may I remind everybody that if there is a technical difficulty, as we noted, Cindy, there was a technical difficulty and everything's okay, you know, and these things happen, and that's, you know, I always tell people if technology worked as it should, the NASDAQ would be at 10,000, and it's not. So, therefore, we are in an era of dependence on as technology. Now things are a lot better than when we first started trading in Project A in the bonds at the CBOT. Project A was, for you old-time traders, that's a term that very few people know. But in any way, the long and the short of it is we've come a long way, but we still need good internet connectivity, and we still need great trading equipment. All right, so anyway, I'm glad we got that kind of out of the way. It's a nice little link for equity traders to give you an earnings date. I think it was extremely gracious of Cindy to want to share that for her peeps and the folks for Trading Station, or excuse me, Thinkorswim, so that they can get their trade stations or trading platforms, together for especially an earnings alert. So, you know, the funny thing is, if you look up here on the top of my screen, you can see, as I'm sharing with you, it says Cindy Earnings. And you can see right there, and it has a neat feature. I can get rid of the past arrows right here. I can get rid of those past arrows. All you have to do is go back to Studies, go to Edit Studies, and as you can see, Cindy Earnings. Click on the wheel, and if I want to get Show Past Earnings, and I hit No, and I hit OK, Apply, OK, and bingo, there it is. Okay? It got rid of all the past earnings, and at least we have a nice announcement about the earnings that's been coming out. All right, so let's get down to basics. A couple things that Cindy was going to talk about. One is many people are familiar that there is a seasonality tool. Others are not familiar that there is a seasonality tool in the market. So let's go and change the symbol here from U.S. Auto Parts. Let's go and change the symbol to IWM, the Russell, which I find to be a very interesting trade right now, personally. And without getting into anything on the chart, I just wanted to share what we are going to be looking at next. I want to say, is this a time of year that the Russell, since so many people think that the small cap sector moves higher this time of year because of, for whatever reason, or does the small cap sector go down? And because we're in such a macroeconomic, global scale conundrum, let's call it, the old term conundrum, one of the things that we like to look at is to anticipate trading opportunities. When's one of the better times of the year that we could look for a trend for this particular sector? Does it go up this time of year? Does it go down? Many people put the Russell in conjunction with the January effect in the sense that the small cap tends to outperform blue chips during the November-January timeframe, thus January effect. And then after that, it doesn't really move, and that's not necessarily the case. So if we go up here to, I believe it's style, and so if you go to style, and we'll keep posting. If you just scroll up, guys, if you don't get that link, all you have to do is scroll up, but I'll just pop that in there for you guys. There's the link if you had to log out and log back in. If you have a sound quality issue, you shouldn't really have to worry about it. Just close out some of your browsers. This is a very stable platform, Omnovia, but if you are having sound issues, it's probably because you have too many browsers open. So I just thought I'd throw that out to you guys, okay? Vic B, you're welcome, and there is the links one more time. All right, let's talk about how to get the seasonality tool. And so basically what we want to go is go down to chart mode. So if you see here, first and foremost, I'm going to go not studies, not drawings, but yet style. You want to select style on your chart, style. Real simple tool, style. Click on style. Scroll on down till you get chart mode. What do you want? Well, I've got it on standard, but I want to change it to seasonality. So immediately, look what we have here. You got monkey bars expanded, and then the bottom of the four choices says seasonality. Click on it. Bingo. Now, what it did is it put into content a daily chart, and you'll notice here that on this chart, blue is a line chart. What do you think that blue is? It's the actual close. It's a clothesline of the Russell, the IWM. And it is again, this thing is starting since the beginning of the year. All right? So what we want to look at is what is the seasonality for the Russell at this point in time? Does it typically go up? Does it go down? Is it in sync with its normal seasonal tendency? And as you can see, it actually has a nice little upside move in the month of March typically, kind of lingers around in April, and then peaks out by late, as you can see, May into early June. So the overall history of the seasonal trend in the Russell is up this time of year relative to other indices. Let's take a look. If you just change the drawing here format, you have the S&P 500. Now, we have the old adage about the beware of the Ides of March, and then we've got quarterly earnings. You can see that the S&P, which is interesting, has a different seasonal makeup, doesn't have a more as much of a pronounced trend in compared to the IWM, the Russell, the small cap. So there's less of a seasonal trend in the S&P 500 relative to the Russell. That's what I wanted to just say. Okay, if I'm going to maybe do a visual test of something, then, and I want to look at, are all indices created the same? What index and what sectors might benefit from the Russell going up? What weighs in on the small cap stocks? Well, you have small cap energy, you got small cap regional banks, you've got a lot of different sectors. Of course, there's the small cap pharmaceutical / biotechs, and so the Russell 2000 has a various different component weighting than, say, what's affecting the S&P 500. And that might explain why certain times of the year we get maybe a flat line and people get concerned about that Ides of March, and sometimes you get a market that sells off. As everyone in this community is probably aware, the S&P 500, while it may seem it's not been adhering to its seasonality, if you note here, one of the things that I always like to explain to people, seasonality is a guide. It's not an absolute. Everyone, I think, has become too reliant on seasonality as more and more people have discovered the powers that seasonality can bring. I think more people have relied on it, and then when they see it fail, they abandon it. Seasonality is not the end-all tool. It is a great tool to give us advance warning about what changes of supply and demand can affect the market. And what I've always written about and taught, and I have a little bit of experience in this, is that sometimes, and if everyone's in the know on it, it generally doesn't work as well, right? If everyone knows it, the secret's out, and it doesn't really work. And I think what you need to address is that I think more and more people are using seasonal analysis. You hear some of more institutional traders, slip, the seasonal aspect of the market. They're in the know that there are certain times of the year that there is a supply-demand function. In strong economic times, we tend to get more magnified moves of products, right? In bearish or muted, or at least a contraction of economic times, we tend to get a more muted move or a less pronounced move in the market. So what I like to do is say, while this is a great tool, we can almost track any type of product. And first and foremost, I'm going to look at the Qs. Now, the NASDAQ 100 hasn't been around as long as you can't go back and get a 40-year, 50-year track record of the seasonality. But for the time period that we can compare is the current market. And I think this is what's kind of important lesson when we start to utilize a tool. Is the market A been in sync with its recent history? Has it been in sync with its seasonal aspect of the market? If a product, a stock, or a stock index is not in sync with its seasonality, then I tend to kind of not rely on the seasonal tool as much anymore. But another thing is that you have to understand that it's a general guide. And that we might be a week early or a week late in that seasonality. Obviously, the Qs had a nasty little sell-off, to be putting it mild, and typically we get the January break, which lasted just a tad longer than most people wanted to see, and then it had a price recovery. But if the market doesn't do anything and it just kind of sits sideways, people start to, maybe their focus or their attention should be in what makes this index tick. It's not just Amazon, it's not just Facebook, it's also, it has components like some biotechs, the IBB, right? What really weighs in on the NASDAQ 100 or the Qs? It's not Apple anymore, that doesn't have the effect. It's a combination of things, but I think mainly we have a series of data or numbers, or excuse me, not data or numbers, what word I'm looking for is we have a series of sectors that weigh in heavily on this market. So let's look at Apple for a second.
Test.
Okay. Oh, we have Cindy. We have a test. We can hear Cindy. Test works. Cindy, are you there? I heard a test. Okay, so we're working on that. I heard it too. She's there. She's overlooking. The great oracle of TOS is coming to here. All right. Now, what this is the seasonal study tool. Now, this was recorded. It's real simple to get to. Once again, go up to Style. All right. Right now, the chart mode I got is Seasonality. If I go back to Standard, wait a minute, what happened? I got a simple chart on Apple, right? And that's what I've got, the simple chart. Now I'm just back to my daily chart on Apple. So if I change back to Style, go to Style, and I want to look at the Seasonality, go to Chart Mode, and then at the very bottom, click on Seasonality. we have two colors, two graphs. This is the chart of Apple year to date. This is Apple from this date and time, and this is the seasonality looking forward. Okay, that's what we're looking at, how to look forward using the seasonality tool. So if you look at the price axis to your right, you'll see 101.03. And if I change this now back to style and I go back to chart mode standard, you'll see where is Apple trading? 101.03. So that's how you know the difference of what you're really looking at. So since the beginning, we can determine the seasonality. Now, it looks like Cindy is back in house and she's live. She's not Memorex. That's fabulous. Cindy, take over, and I think there's a couple questions that people had first and foremost, and then now we can get back to our regularly scheduled program. So I'll let
Cindy call me.
Thank you.
We're trying to do it. Cindy, are you there?
I think so. I'm not sure. Hello? Test? I don't hear anything, so I don't know if I'm coming through or not. Okay, if John's still talking, I don't hear John at all, but in the chat people are saying I can be heard. Oh, okay, so John just typed into me, I'm not talking. That makes sense. Okay, so thank you everyone for your patience. Obviously, I know how to do just about anything with Thinkorswim or any of our trading platforms, and I know how to do nothing with Omnovia. I do teach online every day, but I don't use the Omnovia product. So, and I don't have control. So John, what I'm going to try and do, Mary said if I start screen sharing, I should be able to click on that and show my Thinkorswim platform. So if you don't mind, or if that's what you want me to do, I can take over and kind of go where you were leaving off. So start screen sharing. Okay, it's wanting me to install something. And it says I am not authorized to install the application on my computer. So it looks like I won't be able to do that without having tech support go into my computer and do it for me. So John, is there any way that you can be showing Thinkorswim and we can kind of tag team this? Okay, so I can see the Thinkorswim chart, and I can see that John has it on a 1-year weekly, but it is a seasonal. I like your idea of IWM though with the seasonal chart. So John, one thing I had posted into chat, I was kind of answering questions just in the chat while you were talking, and somebody was wanting to know kind of basically what is the seasonal chart, how do we open it. So I would say if you want to see 5 1-year charts on top of each other, you will go where John is, click on Style, click on Daily, and then choose 5 years. Or if you want to see 10 1-year charts on top of each other, for that I would suggest maybe going 10 years weekly, because you will have 10 charts on top of each other. But for 5 years daily works out really, really well. So you choose the 5-year time frame and then 5 years daily. It looks like top of the chart we have 5 years of daily, and now by going back to the gear and going back to the appearance tab, one thing I've discovered, just my own personal, you have to know yourself as a trader. If I have that display average line, I make the worst trading decisions ever, because that average takes into account some outliers that kind of skews the results of that 5-year average. So I actually prefer, instead of average, clicking on that and choosing yearly. And then by choosing the yearly, I get to see all 5 years stacked on top of each other. So we're going to save that box. And you're going to see 5 1-year charts, and you're also going to see the current year's chart. And the current year chart, as we can see, is going to be in the blue. It's also obvious because the current year chart is going to end on today's date, whereas the 2015 chart will be the full year. The 2014 chart will be the full year, and so on. And then you can move your crosshair up and down, or left and right on the chart, and you'll be able to see, like with our IWM, there is, most of the time, we have this little seasonal drop in the spring, but we also have the outlier. That red one actually went up, or the yellow actually went up instead of going down. And that's where if we just had the average, you might think, oh, this is a no-brainer. I can buy this symbol, on this date, I can sell it on that date, every year I'm going to make money, without realizing in the outlier years, how bad could your drawdown be if you're following the seasonal pattern, but this is one of those outlier years where the opposite actually takes place. Now, if you notice also where John has, on the seasonal pattern for IWM, the beginning of most years from January 1st is a rise. This year, we had the opposite happen. We actually dropped in January. And most years as a rise kind of makes sense once you start thinking about it, because that new 401k money comes into the picture, maybe annual bonuses come into the picture, so there's a lot of capital to be put to work starting January 1st. And like I said, had you followed that pattern and you simply bought the market, or in this case IWM, maybe the last week of December, and held it into maybe the second week of January, this year that trade would have failed on you, but a lot of times in past years it worked. The market itself also has a seasonal pattern in the fall, kind of a similar pattern where we have that drop and then that rise. Those of you that are Jewish, or those of you that know someone who is Jewish, there are a couple of holidays, one that happens in the fall, one that happens in the spring. I'll let you do your own experiments if you're not Jewish. Just look up a synagogue online, an Orthodox synagogue online. Go figure out what those 2 holidays are, and then see if you notice a seasonal pattern in the fall and in the spring around those 2 holidays. A stock that tends to have a seasonal pattern is Hershey's, HSY. And if you think about it, with Hershey's, we have a big chocolate holiday in the spring, well, actually in February. And so, of course, they're going to be manufacturing those candies. They're going to be selling those chocolate candies to the retail stores ahead of that holiday. And then, of course, that earnings right after that holiday tends to be one of their better seasons. And that's why you tend to see that seasonal pattern in Hershey right around February. And then, of course, following that, we have our Easter and our Passover holidays, and a couple more chocolate holidays. I used to think, and the seasonal charts really helped me not lose money in this area. I thought, oh man, this is a no-brainer. I can buy Hershey's going into Halloween. I pulled it up on the seasonal charts to see if that was a good idea or a bad idea, and realized right away, bad idea. And then I had the aha moment. Halloween's a candy holiday, but not a chocolate holiday. And our next chocolate holiday would be Christmas and Hanukkah. So you can see this with your stocks, some stocks. You can see it with the overall indexes, as John showed. And I know John personally, and he and I have had conversations about some of the commodities that have seasonal patterns. And of course, the crops make sense because of when you can and cannot grow those crops, and of course, when you're harvesting those crops. But gold, I've just recently been learning about when they can mine the gold and when they cannot mine the gold based on where they're mining the gold, and sometimes the ground is just frozen. And so they cannot get in with their equipment and mine the gold, and that's part of the seasonal pattern to gold. But you'll find that a lot of your other commodities also have a seasonal pattern. And again, you have situations like our situations with oil right now. We have extenuating circumstances that cause the seasonal patterns to not work. But definitely a really, really valuable tool for testing an idea. Like I had the idea about Halloween. I'm glad I had seasonal charts so I did not lose money. But in going to the seasonal chart, I actually discovered other patterns around Hershey's. So John, if we can go back to just a regular standard chart, there's a tool over on our Edit Studies box that once we think we have a seasonal pattern, we can use to test a seasonal pattern. So we're going to go to the gear, or we can do it that, there you go, standard charts. And for this, yeah, the 1 year chart is perfect. So that right to the left of the gear is a little beaker, or as some clients call it, a wine flask. I love that. And by clicking on the wine flask, you've seen this before dozens and dozens of times, that's your Edit Studies box. So what we're going to do in the Edit Studies box is skip the chart studies and go to the chart strategies. Strategies is a gray box system. It shows you to plot buy and sell signals on the chart going forward. And being gray box, it's just going to plot the signals. It's not going to execute the trade, because there are times when that buy signal that got generated is an excellent signal. And there are times when the buy signal that got generated is a horrible signal just because something else is going on. Same thing with your sell signal. Sometimes the sell signal is fabulous, and other times you say, thank you, Thinkorswim, for the sell signal, but I'm going to skip it this time because of some extenuating circumstance. Now, the strategies also allow you to go backwards in time and back test. So we're going to go for Halloween. And Halloween is a pre-built that's already in there. It doesn't say LE for long entry or SE for short entry or LX for long exit. So if you don't see those after the name of a strategy, that means the buy and the sell are both included in that strategy. So we're going to add the Halloween strategy to a chart of SPY. And we're going to test a theory that has existed for a long time. And let's do our SPY maybe on a 10-year chart. And because the Halloween strategy only generates a signal twice a year, if the daily chart is just too much information, we could go to maybe a 10-year weekly. And you notice it's plotting buy and sell signals on the chart. And what it's doing, and the daily is fine, we can stay on the daily. What it's doing is that you can see the 100, that means it's buying 100 shares of our symbol. And then you see at the ending point, 0 value. And that means that once it exits, we have 0 shares. And it looks like our 0 shares happens to be in red. So if we go to the beaker and we click on the year next to Halloween study, we can switch that from red to maybe orange or something that shows up a little bit better. So Halloween LX for the exit. And then we can click on that color of red and switch it to white or yellow or orange or something that shows up a little bit better against this black background. And our long entry is that bright blue that's showing up really well, so we don't need to change that color. And if you notice, while John's in there changing the colors for us, you also do have the ability to say, no, I always want to be invested, or the default on this one is there are times when you're not invested. So with our zeros, that means when we exit, we are now in cash, we are flat the position. Now, if John does a right click on either a buy signal or a sell signal, just the arrow, he'll have the ability to choose show report. So you have to be right on a buy or a sell signal and show the report, and there you go. You have a back testing report. And then in your back testing report, bottom right, it's exportable if you wanted to export that data. But more importantly, over a 10-year period, you can see on the left how many trading signals it generated off of daily charts. And if you're like, oh my goodness, that is so few signals, I would totally miss the next signal because it's just not enough. Well, then for your particular strategy, maybe you loosen up the parameters so that you get more trading signals. Or if you look at the number of trading signals and say, that is too many, and I'm going to miss some trading signals just because it's too many, it's too much, I'm spinning too many plates and I'm going to drop them all. Then tighten up your criteria so that you have fewer trading signals. Now that trade P&L column lets you know what was your largest drawdown in the sample period. So make sure you go down that trade P&L column, make sure that largest one-time hit is survivable financially and mentally. Those of you that have been around for a while, you know you take a big hit on a trade, even if your account can survive that size of a hit, your confidence gets so shaken that your next 2 or 3 decisions are the worst ones you have ever made. So make sure it's survivable financially and mentally. And then the next thing the trade P&L column can give you, in the sample period, in this case 10 years, what was our largest number of hits in a row? And again, is that survivable financially? But more importantly, if you take 5 hits in a row, have you now lost all confidence in your trading plan? If you take 3 hits in a row, at what point is your confidence so shaken that you're not trusting your symbol and your rules? And TJ says, is this ThinkBack? No, this is actually for real back testing. ThinkBack is over on our Analyze tab, and it's a different tool. So yeah, if you look at it and you're like, okay, the most hits in a row were 3, mentally I can survive 4, you might have a viable strategy. So this is actually testing the idea that it's a seasonal pattern idea, that you actually buy in October and you sell in May. And that's been a market theory for years and years and years. That sell in May, go away thing, that, sit out through the summer, buy in the fall. Well, if you want to test it, here we go. We actually have it as a pre-built strategy. But say on Hershey's, you could take the same idea and say, well, what if instead of buying in October, I buy in January and I sell in March? So you could absolutely edit this strategy to go ahead and test some of those seasonal patterns you're finding on other symbols. Now this is only generating 2 trades a year, and it's based on the monthly chart. But one thing John could do is click on the beaker to open our Edit Studies box, and then to the left of our Halloween strategy is a ThinkScript scroll. And most of our studies and strategies are open source. So you are able to click on that, view the ThinkScript code, and if you say, well, my chart actually has 3 seasonal patterns, Well, then you could copy the code, you could paste it into a new strategy, and then you'll have, maybe more than one input, or you could just have more than one of the add orders and have your get month, maybe our Hershey example, get month equals 1, and then for the exit 3, and then you would have a second one, get month, where do you think Hershey goes up again for that month, and then exit for the other one. So you'll have 2 sets of those add orders to buy and sell, if your chart has 2. If your chart has 3 seasonal patterns, 3, and so on, but you do not have to code from scratch in this case. You're going to simply copy the code, paste it into a new strategy, and then decide, how many. Now, if you notice, it says get month equals 10 for October, but you could do get week. Maybe halfway through the year, which would be week 26, that's the week you want. So instead of get month, and John, I've never tried this before, but try clicking on get month, and then on the right, get month within the code. Oh wait, it's not one of our own codes. It would need to be one of our own codes. So I'll let everybody try this on their own. What you can do, if you copy it, you paste it into a brand new one that's my Halloween or my seasonal, whatever you want to call it. When you click on the get month and then over to the right where it says reserved words, declarations, and all that, there's an inspector tab. And a lot of times if you want to change the code, all you would have to do is click on get month, click on the inspector tab, and it gives you a drop down. And month will be one of the choices, week will be a choice, day will be a choice, and so on. So rather than coding from scratch or having to know the syntax, or where it says the reserved words, declarations, functions, having to look it up, you just click on the item you want to change, or the add order type by auto. If it's your own custom one, you'll click on by auto, you'll click on inspector to the top right, and I don't think inspector is visible when it's one of our codes. No, just reference is visible. So where it says reference to the right, if it's your code, you will also have inspector as a choice. And you'll click on inspector. And so John, since this would be quick and easy to show, why don't we just Control Alt to select all of the code, and then Control C to copy it. And then we'll close this window, and we'll click on the word strategies at the top left. Oops, we need to go back into our edit studies box. And we'll click on the strategies tab and the word new at the bottom, and then a Control V to paste. Actually, we'll delete what's in there and then Control V. Excellent. Now we can see the word inspector. See top right, because it's one of our personal custom studies or custom strategies. We can click on inspector, and then we can click on the word by auto within the code. And so by clicking on by auto within the code, yep, right there, notice the inspector just gave us a drop-down choice where it says type, order type, by auto. You could click on that and just make a choice. You don't need to memorize all of your choices. The inspector will give you your choices. And the same is true if you're doing a custom study and you say, I know what I want, but I can't remember what it's called. So put in the thing that you know, like in this case by auto, click on it and ask the inspector for choices. So that's a way that you can quickly and easily, without having to learn ThinkScript code, be able to, copy one of those back testing strategies, paste it in, tweak it into your personal criteria, and use the inspector to help you out with that. Now, John, I didn't check the time, but why don't we kind of leave this, because this is something that people can play with on their own. I'll type my email into chat just in case people do have questions afterwards. They can shoot an email to me. And let's set a time alert. But first, let's go to the Market Watch Calendar tab. And I'm going to show a huge time saver. So Market Watch Calendar tab. And once we're in the calendar tab, let's go ahead and drop in a watch list. So see where there's a gear. We're going to click on the gear and we'll just choose the S&P 500. We'll go kind of broad and generic for this one. But you notice we could have chosen your own account positions. We could have chosen any watch list. We'll choose the S&P 500. And we're going to click on earnings. We have lots of choices over here on the left for dividends, earnings, conference calls, and so on. But we're going to click on the word earnings. And then we're going to go top right and click on the word list. And you're about to see with just a couple of clicks, we selected a watch list, we selected earnings, we selected list, and boom. We now have a watch list that is sorted in earnings date order. And looking at this list, it looks like on March 17, Nike has earnings after market close. Well, Nike is pretty widely held. It may even be in some of your accounts. So let's set an earnings alert on Nike to make sure that we don't accidentally get blindsided by the earnings announcement. You see the stock moving the next day, you're doing a palm to the forehead like, oh, I've been trading enough years, I cannot believe I missed that one and I got burned by earnings. So now what John's going to do is right click on Nike and in the list is the word alerts. So we don't even have to leave here in order to start setting some time alerts for earnings. So on that drop-down list, there should be the word alert, more info on Nike, and the word alert. Yep, and that's going to take us right into our alerts box. And if you forget how to do this, you can always email me and I'll be able to send you step-by-step instructions. In fact, I'm going to make myself a note to send John the step-by-step instructions. In fact, I might have already done that, but just in case, I'll resend it. So now what we're going to do is we can click on last bid or ask. It doesn't matter which one for this particular purpose. And that's going to start the alert generation process. Now in the Nike box, you can see where it says submit now. But we don't want the alert to go off now. We want the alert to go off on March 17 during market hours. So we're going to click on now, and then we're going to change the date to March 17. So later at, and there's a little calendar next to the date. You can type in the date or just click on the calendar. Or as John just showed, you could do the plus or minus signs. We have March 17. Now at 17:34, the market's closed. So we need to change that time of day, not only to a time of day while the market's open, but what time of day are you most likely to be able to receive that alert and take action on it. So John's picked kind of in the middle of the day, giving us maybe a couple hours or so before market close, and he's showing you how you can change up the times of day. And that's going to be based on, your computer, if your computer is set to your personal time zone. So you know what time the market opens and closes and so on in your time zone. So we'll go ahead and click anywhere to kind of set that in stone and save it for us. And we can see now, oops, John, it looks like by removing the seconds, it didn't understand what you were asking for. So 10:34 and 19 seconds. Now, what we need at the top is for Nike to be at or above, which is already in there, 1 penny. So instead of $59.81, we need Nike to be 1 penny. And you can double click on the numbers and simply type in, which in this case will be a whole lot faster than using those plus and minus signs. You do the plus or minus, but you'll be there for quite a while trying to get that number all the way down to 0.01. So you can double click, which will highlight it, or where John has the flashing, he can just do the backspace and delete it. 01. Now, if John or you in your own platform, on top right where it says setup and then application settings and notifications, if you've given us your cell phone text number or email or both, then you'll be able to click where it says notify with, where it says notify with none. It says how to notify with none. So go ahead and click on that. And in this particular account, the email and text message have not been given to us. If you've given us, and we'll show you in just a minute how to give it to us, if you've given us that information, you will have those as choices within this box. It also looks like maybe John, for this particular account, has turned off all notifications. If the notifications were on, then you would also see an audible. And in the audible, you can choose one of 4 pre-built sounds, or click on custom and you can put in your own sound. One caveat, it has to be an MP3 or a WAV file, and it will play the entire file. So probably not your best choice to import an entire Beethoven's 5th Symphony, even though it is an MP3 file. But what you can do is grab some sound bites. Just if you do get them off the internet, please, please, please make sure it's a trusted website, a website that you know and are familiar with. You can also use the microphone on your computer, and maybe you record your own voice through MP3 or WAV going, earnings, alert, earnings, alert, or whatever it is, or get out now, or time to take profits. You know, whatever you want to record as your voice, your own voice can be the audible alert. One other thing, where it says in the how to notify, so we're going to just click anywhere in the alerts box to get out of there, where it says selected fields. Oops. That's okay. I can talk this part through. Where it says selected fields, if you do want it as a text message, uncheck all of those. You'll be able to leave a note to yourself. It was at the bottom of that alerts creator box, and that is the last thing to come through. So we cut it off at 140 text characters because we don't know who's paying per text and who has unlimited. So we cut it off because the message is at the end. If you've checked a bunch of those selected fields, that information comes through first. It uses up your 140 characters. You do not see your message. So now what John's going to do is go top right to the Setup Application Settings. Because I don't know about you, but for me, when I'm busy teaching, when I'm standing, you know, maybe in the TD Ameritrade booth at a trade show, I need that text message because I'm not in front of my computer where I could hear the audible alert. There is a Notifications tab. You can see it says General Notifications, Order Defaults, and Hotkeys. On the Notifications tab, I love what John just posted into chat, or you could have your mobile app open. You absolutely could have your mobile app open. I just make sure it's the TD Ameritrade Trader app because we do have 2 mobile apps. Or he'll click on Notifications and he'll show us where you can go to add your email or your text message. And you can see where it says get a confirmation code, and we do that because, you know, it's really easy to have a typo. So you'll type in your email, you'll get the confirmation code, it'll come to your email address to prove that there were no typos, your email's working, and then you'll just put in the confirmation code and it'll say that you're ready to use it. Same thing with the text number, you put it in, it will text you a confirmation code just to ensure that you had no typos. And of course, where John has put in enable notifications, if you don't have that selected, you won't be able to even choose sounds. So on whatever username you've logged into Thinkorswim, if that's the username you want, and here's a fun fact that few people know, you can set up alerts using your paper money platform, and they will come through just as if you had done it on your real money platform. So kind of a nice service, a nice ability to have those time alerts, and you options traders, you know, at or above a penny, and choose the day before X dividend, and your note to yourself might be call the trade desk to find out, hey, I have an option position on or an option spread position. You give us a call, we'll look at it with you to find out, do you have, you know, high expiration risk or high dividend risk? And if so, do you want to take action, or do you have low dividend risk and you're going to choose to continue holding that option position into that dividend? So you can use that at or above 1 penny, choose the date for an earnings alert or an ex-dividend alert. So we've looked at, so John set you up with the earnings alert study, and that's a visual on your chart, plus a little old-fashioned telephone ringing. He just showed you how to do a time alert for earnings or for that ex-dividend date. He showed you how to do the seasonality charts and how to back test using some of our strategies. And by the way, if you have a strategy, you back test it and you like it, it's the exact same ThinkScript code for a custom watch list column, for a chart study versus a chart strategy. The biggest difference being the chart strategy has that add order line added to it. A same code for a custom trade trigger. So it'll be a one-time deal. It won't automatically reset itself. Again, this is a gray box system, which means the human element does get involved, as opposed to a black box system where the human element does not get involved and the computer just takes every buy signal, every sell signal without that additional human filter. What we didn't do was show you with earnings coming up. Not a big deal now. So let's show you another nice time saver. So let's go to a chart and let's try Apple. Let's see if Apple already has their new earnings date out and about. And we can leave Halloween on there or not. Your choice whether we take it off. Here we go. And by typing in Apple, one thing we could do is we could go to that gear at the top, and we could adjust the chart, and we can add, let's try adding 20 days, let's try adding 30 days, and then on this chart we only need 2 days. There's a faster way to accomplish the goal. We're going to click on the gear at the top of the chart. And when we click on that gear at the top of the chart, we are going to go to where it says Time Axis. It's the third tab in from the left. And see where it says Auto Expand. So right now, John has 4 bars to the right. And I tend to keep 5 bars to the right, probably for the same reason. I want a little bit of space to the right, but I don't want to, have so much space that it's really scrunching up the rest of the chart. But I also do want that heads up before earnings. So if he puts a check in Corporate Actions where it says Auto Expand, and then he goes ahead and clicks OK to save it, so that Auto Expand, with our earnings season, our next earnings season just around the corner, you notice what just happened to the Apple chart. It's no longer showing 4 spaces to the right. It auto-expanded because Apple already has a tentative earnings date on the calendar. And so now you get to see that next earnings on the calendar. And of course, you can just put the crosshair on it and you'll get the exact date for that. Now, if we went to another symbol where the earnings has not been announced yet, and I don't know if Alcoa has announced yet or not, maybe because we're getting closer to our next earnings season starting, but it will keep auto-expanding or not. There goes our answer. Actually, it has. It auto-expanded just a few bars to the right. So Alcoa, which is the unofficial start of the next earnings season, and that's why I know that within the next couple of weeks and then over about a month period, that auto-expand is going to be a huge time saver, a nice visual on, oh, I didn't even think about it. I was about to put on this option strategy trade, and I wanted to be in it for 6 weeks. I'm so glad for the auto expand because it's warning me that, hey, within the life of my trade, that earnings is going to come up. And I was actually trying to avoid earnings. And of course, for those of you that speculate on earnings, you might come at it from a different angle of, thank you, auto expand, because now I know I could put on an earnings strategy. And some of you have learned how to trade volatility, that little implied volatility line on the bottom of the chart, and you have learned that, hey, if implied volatility rises into earnings, 4 out of 5 times, and I still have about a month to go, I'm entering that window where that implied volatility line tends to start rising into earnings. Maybe I could trade volatility going into that earnings announcement and then close it before the earnings announcement. It gives you just a lot of ideas and opportunities, but that auto expand really helps you to not miss something that might be just like John has his on only 4 days. What if that corporate action is 5 days out? You're not going to see it without that auto expand. So I love it that John knows a lot of our shortcuts. He just clicked on the bottom right of the chart to open up some additional features without having to click on the gear at the top of the chart. So Ron in the chat was asking, where did you go? 2 choices now, Ron. The first choice was the gear at the top of the chart, and then you click on the price axis tab, or John just showed you a shortcut by clicking on the bottom right of the chart, that little icon. It doesn't give you all of the settings, but it does give you the settings for the price axis. To come in and choose that exact same item. One other thing, a tool that's pretty new, it's probably about 6 months old, and we've tweaked the tool. Let's come in here and see kind of where John's showing you that gear at the top. So 2 different ways to access the same thing. Actually, Douglas, I will answer your question first, and then I'm going to show everybody a new tool. So Douglas wants to know, what more does the custom earnings study do? The custom earnings study shows you, and I wish we had something that had earnings. We're at the tail end of earnings season, so it's pretty tough. We can open up, I believe, EXPE maybe? No, not Expedia. EXPR has earnings, but it's not really all that liquid, plus it's a $15 stock. So we do have the earnings, it's actually, we're on local. So EXPR. So you can see you do get that visual, and the visual shows up today. If the earnings are after the market today, then today's the last trading day. Duh, we're kind of used to that one. And it'll tell you earnings after market close today. This one, the earnings are tomorrow. And so it would be too late if tomorrow it gave us that warning. So what it does is on the last trading day before earnings, you get that visual warning. And in this case, it's telling you it's before market tomorrow to let you know today's the last day. For experiment reasons, you can see those orange vertical lines. And John already explained that in the Edit Studies box, if those are in the way, because for experimenting, those are nice. But when you're not experimenting, you can click on the gear and you can turn those off. He's already chosen no for the arrow. You can also choose no for that vertical line if you're not running earnings experiments on, how did price move in the past, how did volatility move in the past, and so on. The other thing it provides, if the symbol, it has liquid options. So he's writing a note to you. I'll let you. Yep, exactly. When that alert appears visually, it's an old-fashioned telephone, and I chose that as the alert sound because it's not a sound we're used to hearing, and so when you hear that, it catches your attention. Now, if the symbol had liquid options, and that front IV is higher than the back IV, and if you're only trading the stocks, don't worry about the lingo I just used. If you are trading, if you're also trading options, you probably understood every word I just said. When we come in, Jen says, good when wearing headsets. Yeah, that old-fashioned telephone and a headset would definitely wake me up. But the other thing where it says earnings before market open tomorrow. If it's something a little bit higher dollar priced, liquid on the options, you will also get an additional label that says the market maker move, or the 1 day, 1 standard deviation expected move, which is most applicable going into a catalyst such as earnings. So it'll say the market maker move, which is your expected move, is, and it'll give you a dollar amount. It will also give you a percent. So it's going to translate that dollar amount into a percent change in the stock. And that also gives you that heads up. Do I need to take action if I'm a stock trader? Can I afford to just kind of wait and see through the earnings and so on? One last thing it shows you. To the far right, on the price chart, will be a shaded rectangle. And the shaded rectangle will show you as a visual that expected move up or that expected move down. And again, because we're just on something that where the options are not liquid, it's just a $10 or $12 stock, we're not seeing those features. But as we get closer to earnings, that's going to come in really handy going into, say, Google or Apple or some of those other earnings where something can really, really move. So earnings before tomorrow. Yeah, that one's not liquid on the options, or it would be there. So keep playing with that. You'll be able to see it. We do need to wrap up, but I can show you a nice golden gem just as a thank you for spending time with me. And we need the far left panel for this gem. So while John opens the far left panel, imagine you're in the office of a hedge fund. And they're on speakerphone chatting with each other. And you get to hear, hey guys, hey, did you notice, some big trade went through on this symbol? Oh wow, check it out, this thing has dropped a whole bunch, and so on. So I'm going to have John click on the menu icon next to Live News. And when it opens up, switch gadget. And the gadget he's going to choose is called Trade Flash. Trade Flash is just that, except they've typed in instead of hearing. So you're not hearing them talk to each other. You're seeing their instant message conversations with each other. And that's exactly what we have going on in here. Now the teeny tiny scroll bar, if he scrolls a little, we'll see some giant blue boxes that say Big Delta Trades. Those are not the traders speaking with each other or chatting with each other. There's a couple of them. The big boxes are actually a pre-built scan inside of Thinkorswim, and they're letting you know when some big trades come through. And again, it's just that nice heads up. We are adding the ability to edit that so that you can kind of choose your own symbols. But for now, we're just letting that pre-built scan run, and we're soliciting feedback from our clients. Do you like it? Do you not? If you had the ability to edit, how would you want to edit? And of course, anything not in a big blue box is those professional traders chit-chatting with each other, and you get to be a fly on the wall and see their comments. Thank you, John, so much for having me here. Thank you, everyone in the chat, for allowing me to come on and show you a few additional Thinkorswim tips and tricks.
Well, thank you, Cindy. That was well worth. I think everyone should note that it was well worth Cindy, her time, because she's overworked and I'm going to guess underpaid, B, to put up with the technical issues and a new platform, so we really are thankful. And yes, this was recorded, so we will get this out. Thanks again, Cindy. A lot of neat things. And phenomenal stuff, and I think there's ways that this can help. I mean, any trader that's serious about the market. That's what Thinkorswim has just now gone beyond. Back testing stuff is not something new. It's something that's important, and having it on Thinkorswim and any other platform to test strategies is very important. So again, as we started off, and we'll conclude with the concept on seasonality. Seasonalities is not the end all. Technical, and it's not just technical analysis, it's the condition of a market. Volume takes place. Not all years are created equal, and that feature to examine the different years which are averaged out, very important. And I think the most important element is that for seasonal traders to understand, since now it's, and I said this earlier and I'm going to say it again, and I think Cindy helped to nail it together for us, that if everyone's doing it, it might not work. And the problem with seasonal analysis is not all years are created equal, and it's not the end-all tool. One year it doesn't work, people abandon it, and it's important to look at things and say, what happened this year. And like I was saying, again, in some years you get magnified moves, some years it doesn't happen, some years you have a muted move, and over time it averages out. And that was an important feature to go and look at any product that's out there that you can backtest. So I want to thank Cindy for her putting up with the technical issues, learning a new platform on the fly last minute. That was fantastic, because I'll tell you right now, folks, I was scratching the whole thing because it wasn't really coming together, and and you know what? She stuck through and came in like a champ. So with that said, we did record it. I think it was really nice that she was generous in giving us her, not just her time, but a nice little link about the earnings, and again, how to utilize that. We will have this, it was recorded, we will have this link out. Don't expect it in your inbox in the next 15 minutes by any stretch of the imagination, but we'll work hard on getting you the email link, because there was not one gem, there was a lot of golden nuggets that she provided for us in today's session. Again, thank you, Cindy. Everyone, have a great evening, and I appreciate everyone coming to Person's Planet here for our Customer Appreciation Thinkorswim Day. Everyone, take care. We'll see you next time.